I've always been an alchemist, transmuting what remains after destruction, creating something new, hopefully infusing the innocence, love, and light that was lost, building with broken shards that make my hands bleed. Loss doesn't just come from death, but from what was supposed to be and never will. That feeling of grief swells, and then the almost unthinkable question hits. What next? Welcome to the Obliterated Place for all the brokenhearted, a space dedicated to creating something from the unrecognizable remnants of loss in its many forms. A place to witness one another's grief and choose to honor grief through our actions, big and small. I'm Kay Steinsapier. Thanks for joining us today. Hello, and welcome back to the Obliterated Place with Kay Steinsapier. I'm your host, Kay, and this is my dear friend, Jill Lipsky. Welcome, Jill, to the podcast.
Hello, I'm honored to be here, Kay.
So, audience, Jill is one of my favorite people. I have known Jill since we moved to Pacific Palisades when Nate was a baby and Molly was a toddler, and our kids, Molly and Jill's son, Jake, were together in preschool.
Yep.
And now our families, over the years have just become like family. We are family. And we're part of an extended family in the Palisades, which has been, I think, and continues to be obviously like such a gift and such a comfort.
We've all been through a lot together.
We have all been through a lot. Part of the reason why I wanted to bring Jill here, other than the fact that I just adore Jill and want you all to meet her, is that Jill's someone who's been through a great deal, I think in a short period of time, is fair to say. So, Jill, why don't you just describe a little bit, like, in a nutshell? Just, I know there's so much,
Sure.
but just kind of give us a lay of the land.
I lost my brother in 2019 after he had battled addiction, alcohol, and basically pill addiction for many, many years. He'd been in and out of rehab. He'd been sober, not sober. And I had picked him up from a detox facility. He went home, and I was trying to get him into a rehab.
Right.
And in that period of time, he got his hands on some pills that were laced with fentanyl, and he passed. It happened. My mother couldn't get a hold of him, and so it had been like a day or two, and so I finally went out to where he lived in Malibu, and found him. I opened the door, and actually I knocked on the door. He didn't answer. All the shades were drawn. I had to drive back home, get a key, just knowing that.
That was probably the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because that morning I remember I went to go pick up a prescription because I had it in the back of my mind that if I don't pick up this prescription, I might not be able to pick it up if I find something. Like there was just something.
Yeah.
I knew,
knowing. Yeah.
And then I found him, and my husband and my family were my kids were in Baltimore visiting our in-laws, and I didn't go on that particular trip because my dad was in the hospital having open heart surgery. And so I stayed back to take care of him and sort of make sure that my brother was okay. And coincidentally, that element of it, I mean, there's just so many layers of grief.
Yeah.
One of them is that when I dropped off my brother at the detox, I was angry, and I remember saying, if you walk out of here, because he would just walk out of every place we took him to, I said, I'm done. I was pissed. And that's the last thing I ever said to him. And he actually, scratch that. That's not the last thing I ever said to him. He got out of the detox and he wanted to go see my dad in the hospital. And I told him he couldn't go. I said, you can't go see dad right now. Like, you're not in the place to go see dad.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I feel horrible about that. And then he went home, and, he must have just gotten, needed something to take the edge off.
Right.
He
Yeah.
couldn't see. I was not letting him see our father. He wasn't able to see his son
Yeah.
because he was sort of forbidden from seeing him. And I think he was in a dark place and was trying to make it through another day, of course. And when I found him, there was no alcohol bottles. There was a bottle of Gatorade, a bottle of water. The house was pristine, clean. Like he didn't go and just go get alcohol, but I think he wanted to go get a pill, probably thinking it was a Percocet, and
maybe to sleep, maybe
just to get through. Yeah,
get through. Yeah.
For sure, not knowing that it was laced with fentanyl, and this was at a time when we were just really learning about fentanyl laced pills. Like it was sort of on our radar, but not like it is now. And so we didn't really know why he died, how he died, so we had to wait for the autopsy. We assumed, but when I saw no paraphernalia anywhere, I thought maybe he had a heart attack. We didn't know, Yeah. And so it took quite a while to find, to get the results and know that it was from fentanyl. So that was
heartbreaking. I'm so sorry. How old was Darren when he passed?
He was 51. Yeah.
And you two were siblings, and we your parents' only children. You were very close.
We were very close. Loved him so much, and I just have great memories of us growing up in Palisades and all the good times.
Yeah.
And the addiction part was challenging because my parents were in a little bit of denial about it,
right?
And they didn't want to hear it, and I was sort of the bearer of bad news. And I remember saying to my mom at one point, "He's going to die," and she got really angry at me and couldn't believe that I would say something like that. And it really sucks to be right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in the car with you. We went together somewhere, and you were on the phone, on the speaker, the car speaker, talking to Darren, who was obviously struggling a lot, and you were trying to comfort and calm him and everything. And I think 2 points I want to say. One is, like, we tend to go back and focus on and relive, like, our worst moments, or the things that we regret, our regrets, and we have such guilt around grief. And so I think we forget all the times. Like, I remember you were so tender and comforting, and I know you did that like 1,000 times, and we forget all of those moments and focus on, I couldn't let him go and see my dad because he was too messed up, and my dad was having open heart surgery, which obviously that he couldn't. But I do the same thing about Molly. I mean, I definitely, like, focus on the times I lost my cool, I lost my temper, I yelled, like, and all the, things day in and day out that are so loving, and, and so I just want to remind you how loving you were, and I saw it. And I just also remember you saying after that call that you knew that eventually, he was probably going to succumb to his addiction.
I think a lot of addicts are sensitive types.
Yeah.
And sometimes the world is just too much, and they're just not strong enough for it. And that's what scared me the most. And so, it was very difficult losing my brother, and we had a beautiful service, and it was huge turnout. All his friends, old girlfriends came from all over. And that was in July of 2019, and then cut to April of 2020, my father passed away, and then November of 2020, my mother passed away. So it was like a hit after a hit after a hit.
And during the pandemic.
And then my mother and father passed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I said this in something I wrote about my dad. I quoted David Kessler, who we both met.
Yeah.
And he said that, rituals around loss exist for a reason, right? And so not having a memorial or service for either one of my parents was really strange. And they also prepaid for their cremation. So I didn't have to do anything. Someone just showed up, picked them up, and brought me back their ashes. It was just really, really surreal, you know. And I don't know that I've even been able to grieve my parents because I'm still really deeply grieving my brother.
I know.
You know,
Obviously, yeah.
and you know, we as I was saying to you on the car ride here, there's not a lot of support groups for people who have lost siblings, like adult siblings.
Right.
There's a lot for child loss and partner loss, but I had a hard time finding one for sibling loss. And so we, as adults, should be able to carry the memories of our childhood together through our lives. And, you know, I think about things and I have questions about, did that happen? You know, how did that happen? What did dad do? Remember when mom did that? And I don't have anyone to share that with, you know? And that's really, that's tough.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. Of course. If you think back, like, what are some of your favorite memories of Darren?
My favorite memory of my brother when we were kids is he used to wake me up on Christmas Eve in the middle of the night. And I remember him in his pajamas and him coming in and saying, Jill, Santa came. And we would go into the living room where the tree was and we would, you know, shake the presents and what's this? And that one's for you and that one's for me. And we would do it secretly. And then, you know, we'd go back to bed and then wake up. And yeah, it was
sweet.
Darren was always a little bit of a troublemaker and always getting himself into trouble. And but he was funny. He was funny as hell. We had some great times.
What was your age difference?
3 years.
You were the older sister.
No,
he was older.
Younger.
I thought of you as older because you were always taking care of him. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That was sort of my role as a child. I sort of tried to take care of everybody. My parents too. I mean, they took care of me, but I was sort of the one that pointed out things that weren't right and how they should be different. And nobody really liked that.
No, I'm that person in my family too. No one likes that person.
Nobody likes that person.
We're in good company here. Do you think that your parents, part of the reason they passed when they did was because of Darren's death?
Yeah. I mean, well, my brother, my dad found out about my brother's loss while he was in the hospital. And I wasn't going to tell him until he was, you know, well enough to hear the news. And my dad, who I didn't even know was on Facebook, saw the post and called me and was, you know, screaming and crying. And when I went to go visit him in the hospital, the nurses told me that he was up all night wailing. And, you know, I mean, that's one of the hardest things about, you know, losing Darren was having to experience my parents' pain.
Yeah.
And knowing what they must be feeling, you know. And my mom was pretty much shut down about it. And in fact, she said she actually never cried.
Mm.
She said, I'm afraid if I start crying that I'll never stop.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah. And so she couldn't process it. And my dad finding out about losing his child after having open heart surgery, I didn't think he was going to last long. And my mom had a lot of health problems, heart problems, lung problems through her life. So I didn't know how long she was going to make it.
I think about your dad, like having his heart operated on and recovering from that, and then just having your heart broken like that. I mean, it's really like miraculous that he lived even as long as he did after that.
Yeah, my dad was like a real tough guy, and he has an interesting history. He was a bastard child in Montana, 1935. His mother was 19 years old, gave birth to him, and you know, I think they sort of had to leave the small town they were in and went to Seattle. And then my dad was 3 years old when his mother died, and he never knew his dad. And so then he was raised by his grandmother and his step grandfather, because his biological grandfather had died in the flu epidemic of 1930 or whatever. So he sort of, I think, had a tough upbringing in a way, and
Talk about the letters that you found.
oh my
That was
God.
so fascinating
Well, I
and
found,
beautiful.
luckily my house did not burn down in the Palisades fires, and I'm grateful in that I found these incredible letters that my grandmother, whom I never met, of course, had written to her mother, and they were so beautiful and sad, because she spoke about herself as the black sheep of the family, and I've, now I think that when I was younger, I sort of maybe I just didn't care as much about the history of my family.
Who
You're just
does?
too young,
I
but
mean, who does? Yeah.
but when you get to
Yeah.
my age, you start really thinking about your family tree and where
Yeah.
did you come from? And now I'm completely fascinated with my grandmother. She was this beautiful Swedish child of, Swedish immigrants, and had like black hair and really fair skin. And
Kind of like your kids. Like
yeah,
Olivia.
yeah,
She's got that beautiful
yeah,
creamy complexion, that
yeah,
black hair.
totally.
Gorgeous.
And now I'm so
Olivia is Jill's daughter, by the way.
Yes, yes. And now I'm so curious about her.
Yeah.
And I want to know. I want to know more about her. And I can't find a picture of her. And I really want to find a picture of her. And so I'm doing a little bit of research.
How did you find the letters?
They were in a box that my dad had kept. And
Did you find them after the fires?
I knew of them before the fires because I remember my mother saying, "Oh, you should read these letters." And I was young when I was probably a teenager, and I was like, "Oh yeah, whatever." And then when I found them and I read them, I just bawled. I mean, they were just so
Right, because your grandmother had had a baby at such a young age and had to leave.
and how she must have felt,
Yeah.
all alone. And then for her family, her brother and her mother and her stepfather, they sort of ignored her. And she wrote about how much it hurt, and here she's alone in Seattle with a baby, and then she gets cancer. We think it was cancer. We don't know. From the letters, it sounded like she had something, some kind of female cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and she died alone, and it's just
Heartbreaking.
It's so sad, So
Heartbreaking.
yeah,
The letters are such a, I think,
yeah.
treasure to find.
Oh, I
right?
know.
I mean,
I love
and
them.
we don't write letters
I know.
anymore. It's just kind of lost. I mean, even me,
I know.
I want to. I just, we don't live in that day and age anymore. It's
know.
like such a nice thing to do, to write and to receive a letter.
Yeah,
Makes me want to do more of that.
yeah. Writing is good. I have some of my mom's journals, and from when she was a teenager, and into the time she met my dad, and it's really fun to read them. I mean, some
Yeah.
of them are boring. Like
Yeah.
today, I went and got my hair done.
Right,
Then I went,
yeah. Yeah.
But it's really neat to get into their.
Yeah, it brings them back to life a little bit and shows you, like, even the day-to-day routine stuff. It's like I did that when I was going through cancer treatment. I would write things down more. I had more time to kind of sit around because I was sick.
Yeah.
And I look back, that's kind of the only time I really have kept journals. And it's nice to look back, and sometimes I see things I wrote about things I did with Molly,
Yeah.
and they're just the everyday things that you don't remember. Our memory doesn't work that way, where we remember all those like everyday things that were, like I was saying, like there was so much love in just the day to day, like taking a walk, like,
I know.
all the things that we do. We just remember, the things that stand out, the high highs and the low lows.
And time goes by so fast, and all
I
of
know.
a sudden, we're getting ready for our kids to go to college. And I mean, I think I want to say that I especially feel so grateful for our friendship group, and having our first loss was really Lily's husband, Damon, who was also Mike's brother and Jamie's brother-in-law, and that was a big shock.
Mhm.
And losing Damon, and then the following year losing my brother, and a couple years after that losing Molly, and
Yep.
Melanie's daughter losing her best friend. And all of a sudden, this Shabbat group that we had,
Yeah.
we all had like this loss in common, and we all had each other. And losing a brother, a father, a husband,
Yeah.
a daughter. I mean, we've had each other,
I look
other's
back at
backs.
pictures of us,
I
when we were all
know.
together, and it's surreal,
Yeah.
It's
So
surreal.
much of the world
Yeah.
has changed in the
I
past,
know.
for me, 7 years.
Yeah.
But and then, the final sort of blow was my parents' house burned down.
Yeah.
And my parents' house was across the street from my house, and it was my family home that I grew up in. And so having lost my whole family and then seeing that house burn down was like
Yeah.
pretty intense.
And it's right across from your
It's
home.
right across
And
from
so
my
while you
home.
didn't lose your home miraculously, somehow your home was like mine
Yeah.
in an area where everything around it burnt down, but
Yeah.
your home didn't.
Yeah.
But right
Yeah.
across the street, you're reminded of that.
Yeah, when I
And
go to my house to
Yeah.
get stuff, get the mail, I see, this vacant lot where I grew up.
Yeah.
And it's all really strange.
And neither of us are back yet in the Palisades. We can't be back, although you're going to be back sooner than later.
Yes, I will be back.
Yeah?
Yes.
How do you feel
I'm
about
officially out of pocket. Excited to be back in my own home.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a little bit weird. It's going to be a little bit like living on the moon because there's like no properties around,
Yeah,
but it's just, something I'm just going to have to get used to.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make my home as nice as can be to welcome my family back into our home. And
Of course. And you will, and you are.
yeah.
One thing that I appreciate about these conversations I'm able to have on the podcast is like I feel like I'm able to sit with people that I really love and have we're just all running around and so busy.
I know.
Especially now with the fires. It's like that is a whole additional like job in and of itself.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so we're just spread so thin. And so there aren't that many opportunities that we have to sit down and have like,
Yeah.
an intentional conversation.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think is just so beautiful about you is the fact that like you've been through these things and you are still the kindest person I know. You are someone who will help anybody or any animal, anything. Like you're like Molly in that way. It's like, you don't pass somebody if someone's falling down at the beach, you're there trying to pick them up, even if they're yelling at you, telling you like
There's a lot of homeless people in town who are wearing Team Molly sweatshirts right now.
Yes.
Because I have a lot of them in my car. And if I see someone cold, I'm like, here, have a Molly sweatshirt.
And it's very beautiful. I mean, she would love that because it's like she's providing, comfort and warmth. And she was like that, it was just like you could never you couldn't tell her like, Molly, we can't help every person, right?
No.
We can't help every dog or every person. She just couldn't understand. That would not work for her.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're that way. Like you help everyone.
I can't pass someone who's asking for money and not give them money because no matter why they need it more than I do, and I, whatever I have in my wallet, I just give them,
You have a huge
I don't
heart.
often have cash in my wallet. But
Don't get any ideas.
Do you take Venmo?
Don't follow Jill around. You're incredibly, incredibly kind and joyful and like you embrace life and it's just amazing and really like beautiful and
So are you.
very
Okay.
special.
I think one thing that you and I have been able to also connect on is sort of the messages that we've received from our loved ones that have passed.
Yeah.
And my brother in particular sends me a message every time I ask. And I can't tell you how many heart rocks I have. And I'll ask him to send me a sign. And he always does. And just recently I was in Bali with my friend and we were on a yoga retreat, which was really special. And I hadn't asked him for any signs in a while. And I remember walking out on the beach and I remember saying, okay, Darren, I'm ready. Just give me a sign. And I walked like 2 feet and I found a piece of heart-shaped blue coral. I should have brought it. It's incredible. And I just picked it up. It's probably illegal to take it off the beach, but
You did?
But I took it.
You sent me a picture of it at the
Yes,
time.
yes.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I know like, I know that you get messages from Molly when you feel down. She helps you to keep going. And
Yeah.
when I'm feeling sad or depleted or whatnot, he sends me signs. And I actually have this one story. Shortly after he passed, I was with a good friend of mine who had come into town and to be with me, and we had gone on a hike, and I became very emotional and upset, and I remember saying, I could have saved him. I could have saved him. I should have known. I should have done this. I should have done that. And she said, no, you couldn't. You could not have saved him. And so that day, I came home and I was at my mom's house, and I was outside her house, and there was a spider web. And in the spider web was a live butterfly. And I immediately went to pull the butterfly from the spider web, and I was able to pull like the sticky webbing off the butterfly,
Yeah.
and it flew away. And it was without a doubt a message from my brother saying, like, okay, you saved me.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, you want to save me and you saved me. And then, like, for now, whenever I
Yeah.
see a butterfly, it's my
So
brother,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but that was him telling me
Yeah.
that he was sending me a message. I mean, I have no
No
doubt
doubt,
in
yeah.
my mind about that.
And it's a great comfort, it is. But then there are like lots of times for me, like a long time will go by when I don't see a sign or I don't feel like
Really?
yeah, and sometimes I'll ask and I don't see
Yeah.
anything, and that sometimes other times I do. But, I know it's difficult when I know I've talked to other people who have lost someone and they feel like they don't get a sign, and
It's also hard to interpret it
it's
too.
hard, yeah.
Like, there's also a part
Yeah.
of me that's like, well, Darren, I'm okay. You can go like wherever they go. Like, and I mean, you just don't know. We don't know what
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Last night I was telling you how we were at the Beverly Hills Fire Department because they came and helped to save our house in the Palisades fire, which was incredible. And we just kind of found out by happenstance that they were there and helped save our house. And it was just really special to be able to thank them and to tell them how much it meant to get, to have our things, like to have Molly's things and all of that. And I was explaining how that whole night when we didn't know if our home was lost, and we thought it probably had been lost because we knew a lot. We all thought that because we knew a lot of our
we knew our whole
neighborhood
neighborhood was
was
burning.
gone.
Right.
Yeah, or burning. So I didn't sleep that whole night, and I just kept talking to Molly the whole night. I think I was getting like somewhat delirious and like insane. Like just
Right.
like, oh my gosh, Molly, we need you. We really, really need
Oh.
you wherever you are. Like, this is your mother speaking, and Molly, I need you.
Yeah.
And I just knew that like if there was any way she could, that she would not let our house burn down because her cat was in the house because we
Oh,
left
yeah.
before we knew
Right.
how bad it was going to get before we had an evacuation order. And I just felt like this is going to be the thing that like breaks my kids. Like,
Ugh.
they had already gone through so much
I
with me
know.
and the
Yeah.
pandemic
Oh
and
my
Molly
God.
and all
Oh,
of that.
yeah.
And I thought if we lose our house and they lose all of their things, like you were saying too, like all of your connections to people, to your family history, all the
Yeah.
things we had of Molly. I didn't grab anything heading out. I thought we were coming right back the next day. When I saw that, video the next morning, it was of our street and it looked apocalyptic. Like everything had been burned. It was just house after house after house was gone. And then it came to our house and it was still there. And
Yeah.
the biggest gift in that for me was like, okay, she's not gone. Like she's with me. She's
Molly
with us.
wrapped her arms around that house.
I think so. I think so. And I feel sometimes I'm sensitive about saying it because, why can't everyone,
Right.
why couldn't she save all the houses?
Right.
She would if she could. We know
Yeah.
that. Or, I don't want to be insensitive to people who
Right.
didn't have that
Right.
experience. But
Right.
I just think, life is unexplainable. And it just, in our case, I do think we were talking about Lily, and it's like one of our close friends, Lily, who's going to be coming on the podcast as well, who lost her husband very suddenly. She was in a similar situation where things around her burned, but her house survived. And then you were in the same, and I was in the same. And
Yeah.
I do think I have to believe that, they helped us in some way, and that they do help us when they can,
Yeah, I believe it. My husband doesn't believe it, but I do.
I know. John's the same, doubtful, right?
Right.
But there is such grief around, just the magnitude of all of the loss. It's like we were already in grief.
Yeah.
And then our whole community joined us in grief, like our whole town.
I often talk to my brother, and because my brother wanted to be a firefighter. Actually, he was kind of obsessed with fires and any kind of. His favorite show when he was a kid was Emergency, and he wasn't able to become a firefighter because he had actually a drug charge, and so that was kind of heartbreaking. But I talk to him and I say, "Oh my God, Darren, you would not believe it, but the whole town is gone, and so is Mom and Dad's house, and so is Malibu, our property in Malibu." And he wouldn't. He just would. He wouldn't. His best friend's house, on Jaycon, and yeah. So, and
it's unreal, especially for you. I mean, you grew up in the Palisades your whole life. You went to Marquez Elementary School, where our kids went, that burned down. You went to Pali High. You were a teacher in the Palisades.
But also, like, it's kind of funny, too, because we've seen so much in the past, like 5-7 years. And so, like, when I see a Waymo, I'm like, oh, my God, my brother would not believe that.
I know.
Like, I'm like, Darren, there's driverless cars now, okay? Driverless cars. And, I tell him, like, there was COVID. There was, like, the whole world shut down. The kids didn't go to school. Like, I often, like, imagine myself, like, running into him or meeting him and telling him everything that's happened, And I talk to him.
Have you seen the phone booth that Colin and his wife, Gail, they lost their 2 teenage children in a collision? They were driving out to their home
Colin?
in the desert. His name is Colin, and his wife's name's Gail. Colin Campbell, I think.
No.
So they were driving out to the desert, like where they bought a home, I think in Joshua Tree, and a drunk driver hit them. And there are 2 teenage kids, Ruby and Hart.
Oh.
Both died in the accident. They were in the accident as well with them, but they obviously survived. And I mean, just absolutely horrific. And Colin is someone who's written a book that I found really helpful, like when I was going through everything. I mean, obviously I will always be going through this, but it was helpful, reading his experience. And it's interesting. He's not Jewish, but Gail is, I believe. And I actually learned so much from him about, like, the Jewish mourning rituals and grief and all of that, which I think actually, like, are good. Like you were saying before, how you can't just, like, not have anything. Like, grief has to be witnessed. We need to be able to, like, have
witness.
something, have a service to, and I mean, in our situations, like, it was COVID, so it was limited.
But you still did it.
Which in some ways was probably better for us.
I remember watching it from my house.
Yeah. I mean,
on live stream.
It was hard for us
We
to
couldn't even be there.
not have you there, and, like, people close to us. I also remember when Damon passed, and I remember thinking about Lily. It was like standing room only. There were hundreds of people there, and that's.
I remember her walking in, like, looking like Jackie Kennedy.
Yes.
She looked so regal and beautiful, and I was like, oh my God. That was such a shock, because he was, like, the healthiest person we knew. He drank reverse osmosis water. Like, how did he die,
And you were the one who told me he died. You called me and told me he died, and I was dumbfounded, and I said, "Are they sure?" Like, what a stupid question.
And nobody really understood why,
Yeah, he was out surfing
on
at
a
night,
full moon.
On a full moon.
And he had apparently a completely blocked artery. Well, Lily will tell you about it when she comes on the podcast.
Right.
But it was a shock,
We had all just been together for Shabbat at my house. right before that. And so it's just
Yeah.
so hard to comprehend, to process, like how, especially someone with an energy like Damon's, which was huge.
Yeah.
And, Molly, all of our loved ones who passed, like, how, I don't believe that can go away. Like, I just don't. I don't believe
No.
that something like that is here and that it diminishes and vanishes and there's no more. I don't believe that. I know that's not true.
I agree completely.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, none of us know what happens, but I know something happens and I know they don't go away.
I
Just
believe
this week we lost my uncle.
I'm sorry.
And thank you. He was 66. My mom's younger brother by a year, and similarly, he was suffering from addiction, and it just adds a whole other layer of sadness,
Yeah, because
like,
you're sad before it even happens.
yeah,
We talked about this before, that there's sort of a grief already in progress when you see them going down,
yeah,
and kind of preparing for it a little bit, but praying it won't happen, and still in utter shock when it does happen. But there is a sort of grief that happens when they're living, when you
of
when you
course,
have, I mean, as you know,
yeah,
addicts in the family. It's hard, and it's also hard when you have when you're sort of the bearer of bad news, with like I was with my parents,
yeah,
and knowing for so long that could potentially be a reality. And as a matter of fact, I was telling you before about how I had a difficult time finding a grief group for sibling loss. So I went to a grief group for families who had lost loved ones to addiction. And I went once and I never went back because there was some parents who were grieving pretty hard, but they had lost, I think, their son, and but they were focusing their anger on their daughter, who I
oh
identified with
my
a lot,
gosh, yeah,
because she was she was the one who said he's going to die. She was the one who said that, uh, and for some reason they were angry at her, and I left there. I'm never going back to that.
right,
I felt so bad for that girl. I just wanted to shake them and say, this is what you have left. Don't ruin
right,
it. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, it's hard to be that person in the family who's seen things clearly,
At
and
our wedding, so one of my colleagues, when I was working at the law firm, said, "Oh, I was at the bar waiting for a drink, and my uncle, not the one who passed, but my great uncle from Arkansas was standing there, and a bunch of my family, from Fresno and then from Arkansas and everything were there, and they were talking. They said, "Yeah, Kay's always been the white sheep of the family." It's like I am, like, I don't know, like sometimes I felt like, do I belong in this group? I don't know. I was always a kid that loved to read, and I was just around a lot of chaos and turmoil, and I was definitely like the one taking care of my mom and then my younger sisters.
yeah,
And I've had to grieve my mother's loss
yeah,
already, and I know I- it's never going to change. She's not going to change. She has been
no,
addicted to drugs, specifically now to meth, for so long that she's not in her right mind. I haven't seen her since before. The last time I saw my mom was when I was pregnant with Eli. So since then, I had cancer. I lost Molly. I didn't see her then. I did talk to her on the phone once when Molly was in the hospital because I felt like she should speak to her. And it was before, it was, in the beginning, they thought Molly was going to be fine. And then
we all
she
thought.
wasn't. And so I get my mom on the phone and put the speaker next to Molly, and my mom starts telling her, like, it's okay if you need to go. Like, and I'm like trying to stop her. I'm like, it's not okay if she needs to go. What are you talking
Sorry, I'm
about?
laughing.
I mean,
That's just so
it's like ridiculous. She's like, Nanny is waiting for you. I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
oh my God. So like even in that
Sorry.
moment, I know.
So insane.
This is my family. Yes. And so then
Oh my God.
right the day after we had Molly's memorial service, my mom contacted my husband and asked him for money. And
Oh,
she knew better than to ask me, because she knows, I will help. I will always help. I will help go into rehab. I will help see a doctor. I will help have a place to live, but I will not wire money. I will not
no.
transfer funds.
Right.
Because I've been down that road many
Right.
times. So, it's like she took advantage of John in his worst possible pain and grief and hit him up for money that he was prepared to give because he was so upset. It's like, well, Molly, maybe she would want us to do this. I said,
Oh, geez.
oh my God. So I called my younger sister and asked, what's the story? She says she needs this for this reason. And she said none of that is even true. So the whole
Oh.
story she made up wasn't
She's
even
a
correct.
sick woman.
She's very sick.
It's
so
sad.
I've had to grieve her loss, and it's
Yeah.
the horrible thing, and I feel a lot of pain inside about this. It's and I feel really awful saying it, but it's true that I almost want that day to come when she's no longer suffering like this.
I understand that.
Because she is suffering and she's not herself.
She's
and
suffering,
she is never,
and it's you're suffering.
she's never going to be able to come back from this ever.
Yeah.
And she is suffering and she is making everyone else suffer. And it's
Yeah.
the worst feeling inside to think that way. But,
I understand that.
I
mean, this is a different scenario, but I was actually relieved when my parents passed, because I knew that they didn't have to carry the burden of that pain of my losing their son anymore, which
Yeah.
is completely different than, your mom. But it is, I think that what's important to know about addicts is that, nobody wants to be an addict,
Right.
right? And I think they just, after a while, become resigned to it.
Yeah.
And they kind of give up, and it's just about, getting through each day.
Yeah.
And, it's really sad. And again, it's I find that it's the sensitive types,
It is. It absolutely it is. And my uncle who passed was that type as well. And he had a beautiful life and home and family, and then somehow became an addict and became homeless for years and years. And then my mom became homeless. I think she saw her brother, who was a year younger than her, as sort of someone who was saying fuck you to every, her parents, their parents, and I'm just going to do things my way, and my mom, the first night she left and she was sleeping on the streets, I was pregnant with Eli. I said, I'm getting in my minivan. I am coming to get you. It's 4 hours drive for me. Give me your location. I am on my way, and you're going to come and stay with me, and you're going to get better. And she wouldn't. She didn't. She would just send photos of her, living out of a shopping cart, picking up cigarette butts off the ground and smoking them.
So she wanted you to know.
She wanted us to know. She wanted us to know, but she wouldn't accept our help.
Right.
And then after that, years later, after Molly passed, I was paying her rent because, she had moved to Arkansas, where our family's from. And I felt like that was good. She was away from, a lot of bad things in Fresno. And I wanted her to stay there and be successful. And I wanted her away from my sisters because she was tormenting them. My poor younger sister, Michelle, was working at her job at a car dealership. And my mom would show up and tap, tap, tap the window.
Oh,
and her coworkers are like,
oh my, this is crazy lady.
Who is outside the window?
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot live like that.
No, and also, when you're doing those kinds of drugs for that long, you have brain damage.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's no question about
Absolutely.
it. Absolutely. You can't see things correctly.
That's how she's become. And so then we ended up buying her a place,
I remember.
in Arkansas.
And she didn't want to stay.
It was a beautiful place. She left. I mean, she didn't need to do anything but live there and be well, and I had lined up for her, help at the University of Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
She has no teeth because someone punched her in the mouth and knocked her teeth out, her front teeth. She still doesn't. And I'm like, that's not necessary. Let's get that fixed, but she won't. And so it's I know my cousins, how they're how they're feeling about their dad, losing their dad, because it's the same with my mom. It's like they knew this was coming. It was just a matter of time, and it's just heartbreaking, and you're helpless and you can't do anything, and you
Yeah, I
try
mean,
everything.
that's as helpless as you can get. I mean,
You can't do anything.
when you have the means to help them in the way that you had offered and they deny it, there's really, what can you do?
Not only offered, we did. I
Yeah.
mean, because in Arkansas, the cost of living is lower. That's why she moved there. But like my mom was a nurse. She's very smart. She was a pediatric nurse. She's a really talented person. She's creative. She loves to dance. Like, she's an awesome person before all of this happened. And my uncle too. Like, I'm going to Fresno tomorrow for his service. I don't know what kind of service it'll be. It's like at where my grandparents used to live in their mobile home park on the river. Like, I don't know. It's not going to be religious, I'm sure, just like a family gathering. But
Maybe some canned beer there, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I'm going to be the white sheep, like, hey, what's going on?
Okay.
But I haven't been around my family in so long. Like, I didn't see them when Molly died. None of them came.
Well, I mean,
Um,
what you've become out of what you came from is quite remarkable.
Thank you.
I mean, a successful attorney. I mean, it's so you speak so beautifully. I was just talking to someone about when we had the you were sitting Shiva for Molly, and we were all there, and I remember Cantor was there, Chaim was there, and you got up and you spoke so eloquently and so beautifully, and you were quoting Eli. What's his name? Eli.
Elie Wiesel or something?
Elie Wiesel. Sorry.
I have no idea. I have no recollection.
My goodness! I think it was him.
I was out of my.
A Man's Purpose. What's that
Viktor
guy?
Frankl, my
Viktor
favorite.
Frankl. Sorry, you were quoting him.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah.
I mean, you have such a beautiful way of speaking and communicating, and this is such a great platform for you, and I'm so glad you're doing this.
I look back at those Shiva, because Shiva is 8 nights, isn't it? Or 7? We don't know.
Don't ask me. I'm a shiksa.
I'm a convert, so who knows? 7 nights, I think.
8 crazy nights.
In any event, we had people in our house night after night, like after Molly died, and it was a comfort, but it was also overwhelming as well. And, John's got the mirrors covered and all these things. I'm like, what? I was just like absolutely in shock and stunned. And I just wasn't in my head or body or anything. And I do remember like standing up every night and speaking and saying things. And I remember doing it, but I don't remember anything I said or anything. I was not in my right mind or body or anything.
No.
I was just completely so overcome with like shock and trauma. And in many ways, like the second year, as people told me it would be, was harder because when that shock wears off, and you don't have that anymore, and you are just stuck with the realization, the reality that like they're not here and they're never coming back. I mean, I used to drive like by the ocean and think like we threw Molly in the ocean, like, every day, like passing PCH, or there's just a million different things, I'd be in the grocery store and I'd go to reach for like the split peas, and nobody in my family likes split peas but Molly. She loves split pea soup, and I couldn't get it anymore. And there's just 1,000 different things like that in the early days, just after that shock wears off and you're left with 1,000 paper cuts like that.
Yeah.
It's just so painful. But I don't know another way to live with this enormous hole that I have in my life other than to try and create something that matters, that's helpful, that's
and you do that every day. You honor Molly by doing good in the world and spreading the love. We all feel it throughout the universe, and it's a beautiful thing, and we're happy to ride along this ride with you.
Well, I mean, you're on a ride too. Like, as we just discussed, that's just a tremendous amount
to go through.
It is. And, speaking of ashes, I have my mother, father, and my brother in my hall closet.
Oh my God.
It's very weird.
What
I don't know what to
are
do
you going
with
to do?
them.
We should
I
do
don't
something. Do you want to do
know.
something? Like,
Well, okay, so this is my dad's sense of humor. Or not my dad's sense of humor. This is just the way my dad was. He wrote a couple of letters when we die, when I die, actually. And he said that he doesn't want to have, of course, he didn't know COVID was happening. He didn't want to have a memorial service. He wanted to have celebration of life. And then he doesn't want, any service or anything. And then and then on another piece of paper, I find it said, songs to play at my memorial. And one of them was someone to watch over me.
oh, that's a beautiful
So
song.
sweet. And then he said, I had a list of this is the banking accounts, and this is where this is, and that's where this insurance policy is, and all this stuff. And you and Darren will split everything equally. And of course, that didn't happen. But he said, I would like, I'm going to be cremated. It's already prepaid for, and I'd like my ashes spread out in Malibu. He goes, I don't know what your mother wants. You'll have to ask her. That was so I did like they didn't talk about this together.
How long were they married? What,
50 years?
50 years?
Yeah, they couldn't come up
No
with
dialogue.
a letter together, like. And then I have like this thing my mom hated to get her hair wet. So like I can't bring myself to put her in the ocean, like.
I get that.
So weird.
I totally understand that because like Molly's in the ocean because Molly was a creature of the ocean. She could not get enough of the water, and it was the only place that made sense for her to be. The idea of putting her in like some cemetery somewhere, whatever, I just couldn't do that. That was not her.
I don't know. And then I also think I neglected to mention that my brother has a son, Alex, who is the same age as my twins, Owen and Olivia, and he spends every weekend with us, and we're so blessed to have him. We love him. And someone brought up at one point that maybe he would want the ashes, and maybe he would want to do something with them one day. And so it feels like such a big decision to make, and so I don't know. My mom and dad, I originally was going to put them out in Malibu, but then that place burned down. I was going to rebuild. We were in the process of upgrading and making it nice, and then it burned down, and I don't think I'm going to rebuild out there now, and so I don't necessarily want to put their ashes out there in front of someone else's
Well, I
house.
can relate to your mom, and you not wanting to put her in because of her hair, because I am afraid of the ocean. I am terrified of the ocean. And so John's going in the ocean, and Molly's in the ocean, but I don't know if I can go in the ocean. Like,
Maybe we could put you out on like a little barge or something right above them.
Like, I would like to be under a beautiful tree.
Ooh,
I love
nice.
trees and birds and flowers. Like, I'd like to be like, I don't know, something like that. But I don't want to be without my family. So
I know.
I think I'm going to have to go and sleep with the fishes.
I was in Honolulu recently, and I thought I should just throw them right off this pier. It's so beautiful down here.
Seriously, like in the White Lotus.
So random, right?
She couldn't let go.
Right.
Remember that?
That would be my excuse to go back there every year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I have to.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Oh
well,
gosh, at least we can laugh sometimes.
You have to. You absolutely have to. Otherwise, you go insane. And we have the most fun. Like, I just love you because I know if I'm with you, we're going to have a great time. We could be at a stuffy party and you and I are dancing. We don't care if no one else is dancing, but we're dancing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We are dancing.
So I love that. And I'm so grateful for your friendship, and I adore you. And I think that you like just exude like that big heart you have. And you're just so gracious and kind and lovely.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way about you. And I'm also so proud of you. I'm also want to go on record to say I'm so proud of Lily.
Yeah.
Because Lily, our friend who lost her husband, she was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And she just like picked up, put on her big girl shoes and went back to real estate and is killing it and is able to live in the house that she didn't have to sell the house, and she's taking care of her kids, and her daughter just got into an amazing college, and she's just done such an amazing job raising those kids. And I'm just so proud, and I admire all my friends, and I see you and Lily and everyone. We've all been through so much, and we keep going and doing. And I know that Molly's so proud of you. I know Damon's so proud of Lily. I know my brother and my parents are proud of me.
They are. And your kids and
my
Jeff
kids.
and
Yeah, I hope.
they're with us. They're with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Oh, well, on that note, I'm so glad we did this.
Yes, thank
and
you.
Lily's coming on, so everyone's going to be excited for her to come since we've talked about
I just
her.
want to say that I had no idea that the lower part of my body was going to be shown. I wouldn't have worn jeans.
Why not?
Although I wear jeans
What
for
are you
everything.
gonna- yeah.
And maybe I would have made my hair a little
God.
bigger.
Oh, well, I can't even see what I look like. I'm sure I would
look
make
fabulous.
changes.
You look fabulous.
All
when
right.
I saw your boots, I was like, oh, damn.
Well, it's cold.
I know, but I should have worn sexy boots. Oh, well.
Next time. Next time.
I'm wearing sexy clogs.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Obliterated Place. Be sure to follow and like and subscribe and leave a review, all the things that...
Only a good review, please.
Oh, yes. If you don't like it, please keep to
refrain.
yourself. Keep scrolling.
Exactly.
We hope to see you again with our next episode. Thank you.
Resonate.